earlier you mentioned something to the effect of recognizing plants as living beings, which, from what I understand from talking with you and the reference, is something akin to animism. I'm curious if you can, start by a very general definition of animism, and then share what role animism plays in your, as herbalists, but also in your personal life as herbalism people. pardon the loose terms here, but give me a little sense of animism and the roles that it plays in both your practice and your personal life.
So in essence, I think there's a lot to speak on animism. In essence, it's a recognition that there is an aliveness to the world, not just the human world, but the non-human world alike. That includes animals, plants, mushrooms, large trees, but also rivers, the wind, the mountains themselves, and recognizing that there is this aliveness to the world, but not only recognizing that, but having direct relationship with that and forming a relationship that's directly felt within the body itself. So we can hash that out a little bit more, but in essence, that's the way I understand it. And that's also, again, going back to these traditional models of healing, such as herbalism throughout the world. This is also the default reality that all humans have existed within since pretty much the beginning of time until relative recent history, where there was this understanding that there was this aliveness to the world and people acted accordingly to that as well. And we can see a lot of our rituals and traditions and ceremonies that really are built around that understanding as well. And you can see that in our herbalism too, which I really believe vitalism and animism are very, very similar. They're sister kind of belief systems, but it's hard for me to even call animism a belief system because from my perspective, it's just the way things are. Rather, it's removing this cultural veil that we're shrouded in to recognize, oh, there is this aliveness to the world and we can directly engage with it and it also wants to engage with us. And even using the term it just feels inappropriate as well, but it's still this like cultural conditioning that is so deep within myself. And so for me, the practice of herbalism has been this deconditioning, this like materialistic and mechanistic worldview.
Yeah, and as Travis was saying about that word it's so woven into our culture and our language that we don't even always have the words to describe what animism is and what it is to really relate to plants and nature, because in most traditional languages, it's just woven into the way that people speak and recognize their environment, versus we have to actively really think about and try and find words and find ways of explaining these things because they're not woven into the English language, really.
Mm-hmm. And as a modern civilized person living in a very privileged, developed nation, for lack of a better term, it has been a very direct, engaged practice of forming relationship and experience with that living natural world. And I still feel like I'm in my infancy of that process. But with that said, just that in and of itself has been profound in how I understand myself, herbalism, disease, and our kind of meaning and purpose and direction as living beings on this planet.
You talking about the it makes me think, I wonder if it's on my shelf easily. Yeah. I and Thou by Martin Buber. He talks very much about this premise. I think he says something like when you refer to a being as an it is an object. It is possessive. It is something around the idea that when you refer to it as a you sort of inherently give it subject. You give it sort of like the permission to be, such that it's not your possession. It is a thing that you meet and can meet you. I believe I'll leave that there. But yeah, so that's quite interesting and really beautiful.